In this episode of the Latino Business Report, we have Juan Carlos Serra of the American Business Immigration Coalition and Stan Marinick, business owner. The subject matter in this episode is intended to give listeners a more comprehensive view and to reveal a lot of the facts that are not being reported by the news media. Mass deportation is the political battle cry of the day. There are those who want us to believe that mass deportation of undocumented people from the United States will solve this country's problems. I've seen that movie before, and mass deportation is not the answer. It'll only make our country's current plight worse. This campaign promise has been reiterated time and time again, a promise to rid the country of people without legal permission to be here. First, they would use the National Guard, local police, and then the military, if warranted, to force the immigrants back from where they came. I encourage you to listen to this podcast carefully, make your own decision, and decide for yourself. Do we put our time, effort, and money into fixing an outdated immigration system, or do we simply do a mass deportation, spending up to $600 billion to deport the essential workers that is needed to keep our economy going?
Welcome to the Latino Business Report. This podcast covers business, people, and issues of the day from a Latino perspective. The Latino Business Report is brought to you by TAMAC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce. TAMAC is the leading Hispanic business organization in Texas since 1975. Now for your host, J.R. Gonzalez.
And welcome to another episode. For those of you that are regular listeners, my apologies. I know I have not been on the air for a little while. I took 5 or 6 weeks off to kind of get my head straight, and as you all know, life happens. So we are back. We're back with a new attitude, a clear head, and we have some great shows lined up, especially the one today. Today we have two gentlemen. We have Juan Carlos Serra, and we have Stan Marinick out of Houston, Texas, that is in the construction business. And Juan Carlos Serra is with the American one. Who are you with again? I get that. I never get the ABAC acronym correct.
The American Business Immigration Coalition.
And Juan Carlos, what is the American Immigration Business Coalition?
The American Business Immigration Coalition, or ABIC for short, is a bipartisan organization of more than 1,600 CEOs and employers that promote common sense immigration reform.
Common sense immigration reform. Well, common sense is not that common anymore. So congratulations on the effort. And I know it's a difficult chore, but I know that ABEC took the point, and along with its organizations and other community leaders across the country, was actually able to get the president to move on an executive order allowing spouses of U.S. citizens who actually work. Can you explain that a little bit? And there's a lot of folks who probably didn't even realize that law existed, but can you explain what happened and how that happened?
Yes, we were on your podcast a few months ago advocating for the expansion of work authorization for long-term residents to help address our nation's labor shortages. After almost a year and a half of urging President Biden to expand these work permits and getting the support of over 300 employers, over 200 local elected officials, and over 80 members of Congress, we were finally able to get the administration to expand work permits for the spouse of U.S. citizens and make it easier to allow employers to sponsor dreamers for employment-based visas. So these are very important new policies that will help our economy.
You say the spouses of U.S. citizens. So spouses of U.S. citizens that were not documented were unable to work in this country?
Yes, many of these spouses are in what's called mixed status families. These are families that have at least one undocumented family member. Many of these spouses could not adjust their status when they married a U.S. citizen because they entered or re-entered the country multiple times, or they had false documentation to work. This is something that's very common because many people have to work and pay taxes to make ends meet. And sometimes they get bad legal advice from lawyers, so they are forced to leave the country and they find out that they can't return legally. So that is what an undocumented spouse in a mixed status family is.
So we have actually spouses that are been in the country for a long time, probably have children here, but yet because of their status, they were unable to work. And what this executive order did is allow these folks to actually get the right with the U.S. for not for citizenship, but to give them the opportunity to actually get a driver's license and go to work and try to start filling some of these this labor shortage that we have in this country. Is that correct?
That's right, JR. It allows them to be protected from deportation and to be able to get a legal work permit so that they can contribute to their family finances and go to work for employers that don't normally and wouldn't normally employ them because they are undocumented. So it's an important policy that's as big as the DACA program was 12 years ago when it was announced.
Okay. Now, Stan, we're going to get to you in just a little second because you're a key part of this discussion. Because, well, first of all, Juan Carlos, again, congratulations to ABEC and all the folks on getting that. I know that the president has signed executive orders from people from other countries who are coming to actually be able to work. And I think any business owner out there knows it that right now there's a huge labor shortage in this country, and anybody who's here that can actually do a job, we need them. Juan Carlos, last time we talked, and thank you for reminding myself and the listeners that we did talk about that subject on a previous podcast. So if you're interested, we definitely would encourage you to go back and look at that. And I'll put a link on the show notes to anybody who wants to go back and listen to that podcast. But if you said something to me the other day when we were talking, if everybody in the U.S. that wanted a job were to have a job, we would still have what, like 2 million job openings in the country?
It's not worse than that, JR. Now we would have 2.4 million open jobs because every unemployed person, even if they got a job, it would still mean that these 2.4 million jobs are unfilled because we don't have the people coming into the country necessary to fill these jobs. So it's getting much worse. It's not getting better.
Okay, 2.4 million. This source is the, I believe it's the United States Chamber of Commerce who originally came up with this figure. All right, 2.4
Yes.
million jobs unfilled right now. And if we were, and a lot of the jobs that are currently out there, like it or not, are being filled by people that are undocumented. So the thing that I want to talk about today, gentlemen, and Stan, definitely get your take. And Stan Marinick, my apologize, the last name, Marinick. Marek. Stan, tell us a little bit about
unless you're from Czechoslovakia, where we came from, and it was Matic there.
Marek. Okay.
Americanized by my kids.
Well, Stan, how do you prefer your last name being pronounced?
Merrick's fine.
Okay. Well, how about just Stan for right now?
That's
Stan Merrick, you own a construction company, and what is the name of that company, and how long you've been in business, and can you give us an idea?
My dad and his brothers grew up in Central Texas and farming, and they lost everything during the Depression. They started hanging sheetrock back in 1938. So we say that's when we started. All went in the service after the service started up again, and today, 85 years later, we've got 8 offices, a couple thousand employees, and we do interiors, drywall, ceilings, paint, floors, anything on the inside. Doing some really big projects in Austin. We're doing the Apple campus out there. We did the remodel of the Capitol when it was done. We did the Four Seasons Hotel. We've been in Austin 50 years, and doing our thing. And immigration has become an incredible concern as our workforce issues.
Okay. Well, congratulations on the success of with the business in 50 years. That says a lot. Juan Carlos, the reason we're here today, and Stan, is I want to talk about this stuff I'm seeing coming. Politics is gearing up. We see it on television. We can't can't pick up a newspaper, can't watch TV, can't do anything without hearing what's going on, and some of the political rhetoric going back and forth. And one of the things I don't want to call it rhetoric, because it's definitely being put out there a lot, is the proposal of mass deportation of all immigrants after the presidential election. So from what I understanding is that if the Republicans win the election, is that one of the things that the president nominee is going to propose is to immediately initiate mass deportation of all undocumented workers, or what they call illegal aliens. Juan Carlos, how many undocumented folks do we have in this country, give or take?
There's around 11 million undocumented residents here in the United States, JR, and 1.6 million of them live here in Texas and they've been here for many years. At least 76% of them have been in the country 5 years.
Okay, so 11 million. I'm just trying to figure out the cost factor of rounding up and deporting 11 million people. I mean, it's not going to be cheap. And the last time we had Stan, you're probably Stan, you're probably too young to remember. I know I'm definitely too young to remember, but I believe we had a mass deportation roundup right after World War II.
48 Bracero program.
There you go, the Bracero program. For those who may not be familiar with that, during the World War II, when all the young men were overseas fighting in Europe, there was a lot of job vacancies. And so what the U.S. did is they worked with Mexico, called the Bracero program, and you had Mexican nationals coming in and filling a lot of the jobs. Of course, a lot of the women went to work. A lot of women went into work in non-female traditional works, the Rosita Riveters, and going into factories and doing what we could to support the war effort. And of course, the Bracero program, we had people come in here in labor and continue to pick the crops and do whatever was ever necessary to keep the country growing. But as the young men came back from the war and they wanted their jobs back, there seemed to be a lot of migrants filling those jobs. So the president at the time initiated a program called Operation Wetback, and that's where they mobilized the U.S. military and started rounding up people across the country and putting them under freight car trains. Actually, they're like cattle cars, and deporting them into Mexico, into the interior, where they couldn't just walk back across the border. That was a costly endeavor. It was one. It's something that I'm not particularly proud of in our history, the way they initiated or executed that program. And a lot of things, when you start getting into it, is that a lot of these young soldiers or guardsmen from wherever they were couldn't tell the difference between a naturalized citizen, a U.S. citizen, and maybe somebody who was an immigrant. So there's a lot of U.S. citizens of Hispanic descent or Mexican descent that got deported and shipped off they're just picked up off the streets. No family didn't know what happened to them, anything. They just got deported. So what I think from my understanding, or at least from my take of what is being talked about right now, is a mass deportation is basically the same thing as Operation Wetback back in would you say, Stan, 1948 that occurred? So that would be, I think that would be devastating to the country. Stan, you're in construction, and let's be realistic. I mean, if it wasn't for Latinos and it wasn't for a lot of this immigrant labor, the construction industry in this country, not to mention just the state of Texas, but the country, I mean, our crops, our fields, there's a lot of essential jobs out there that nobody wants. What would happen to a company like yours without or what would happen to the industry?
Okay, the industry would be destroyed, especially probably all over the nation. Remember, the last significant immigration bill was 1986, Immigration Reform Act, and President Reagan. Since then, there has been no way someone can come into this country legally to fill a job. There's no way. The visas, you wait in line, no way. So the people come. We took shop out of our schools 20 years ago. The kids are all going to go to college. So they didn't get the skills that help them vocationally. So they're not going into construction. So the immigrants are filling the need. And to come and go to work, you don't need an ID. You can get a fake one at the flea market if you're even required to have an ID. But every job site, every home, every housing project, every building, there are undocumented people, and they've been here. Now you take these people. Juan Carlos said 11 million. I've heard 20 million, but who knows? Who knows? But if a person has a fake ID and goes to work for me, I have really no way of checking it. E-verification is a joke. In other words, if he has your ID and your name, he's going to go through E-verify. But I'm going to be paying Social Security, and he's going to be paying social. I'm going to be matching, up to the tune of 15 cents of every dollar going to the government. And the good thing about having all these undocumented workers here who are young, contributing to Social Security, they're paying my Social Security, because the fund would have been dead by now if we didn't have all these undocumented people paying into it. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, so you got all these people working in campuses all over Austin. The Tesla factory had a lot of undocumented workers with fake IDs. Nobody would do anything about it. Yada yada. But the bottom line is, if we do have a deportation, they will come in to employers like me and they'll say, let me see your I-9s. And I'll give them my I-9s. And the easy deal is they're going to look at all the I-9s and say, okay, this name doesn't match the number, or this looks like it belongs to somebody else. We're going to deport those people right now. Boom. Even though they're paying taxes, they're doing everything right. They've been here 10, 15, 20 years. They're gone. All the dreamers, they're gone. And then you start going in and rounding up people, going by the Home Depot in the morning, got the guys standing there waiting to go to work. We'll get them. I mean, he could do it. And it would cost billions, not millions, billions of dollars. And it would destroy our industry because your schools aren't going to get built. Your hospitals aren't going to get built. Your office buildings aren't going to get built. We'll eventually build them, but it'll be at double the cost because we got to find labor somewhere. We'll go other cities, other states, try to bring labor in if we can. But most people are just going to go broke.
I mean, housing prices in this country are going crazy as it is.
It would be crazy.
I can't imagine what a house would cost if, in fact, you didn't have that immigrant labor.
Yeah. So mass deportation in Texas, it would be Texas, Florida, and California, and Arizona that would be hit the most, because that's where about of the 11 to 20 million people here, probably 70% of them are in 4 states because close to the border. Now, the key to all this, JR, and Juan Carlos and I are in agreement. If the government would come in and say, okay, employers, look, you might have some undocumented people working for you. If you can get that straightened out, bring them into Department of Homeland Security, let us do a background check, let us get fingerprinting, let us give us a tamper-proof ID, and pay $500, we'll give you a permit, a guest permit. In other words, not path to citizenship, not a green card, not anything they can get welfare with, but they'll give them a permit where they can work, get a driver's license, and not have to worry about being deported. And the employers are going to do all the work. It's called ID and tax. So all of a sudden, all these employers that are just dying for people, first of all, we want to make sure our own people are clean, but then we want to go out and get all the people who are misclassifying as independent subcontractors or driving Uber or, working in restaurants that could do construction, and bring them into construction by giving them, the same permit. And every million people that we can take out of the underground economy and put on a W-2 payroll, that's what people like me have W-2s called, where you have payroll taxes, Medicare, Medicaid, workman's comp, safety, all these things. Every million workers that you can take out of the underground economy is $4.75 billion per year to Social Security. For 1 million people, 4.75 billion. Wow. Our Social Security fund is dead in 15 years. If we were to do this, it wouldn't cost the government 1 cent. Those $500 a head would raise significant money for Homeland Security to monitor, to put more agents out there to go around to employers. We could fix this in no time at all. Now, if somebody has a background check and he's a felon, boom, he's deported. So it is a no-brainer, common sense solution that everybody knows it would work. It's the same thing that we did with Dreamers, JR. There were, if you take the cutoff age at 16, if you came here before you were 16, those 700,000 that entered the program, 700,000 did exactly what I'm talking about. They went down, got a permit, they got a work permit, they're W-2, they're working. We know exactly where they are. We know exactly how much taxes they're paying, and it's fantastic. And if you were to open that up to age 18, there's 1,700,000 kids that are eligible for DACA. Eligible. 1,700,000 kids that we put through grade school, high school, in-state tuition in Texas, thanks to Governor Perry, that we could hire and put on a W-2 payroll. What are they doing now? Working in restaurants, working, off the books in the underground economy. And that's low-hanging fruit because they're educated. If you were to tell those kids, look, go get a nursing degree, go join the police department, go be a teacher, and we'll give you a green card, it would solve our labor issues in so many areas. Another no-brainer. So we're making a very big deal out of something that could be solved very easily by all of us without getting the government even involved.
There again,
Questions?
common sense solutions to the problem. The just for those listeners who may not be familiar, Juan Carlos, could you kind of explain? Stan was talking about DACA. Could you kind of explain what DACA stands for, and about how many people we have in the country right now under that DACA protection?
DACA stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and it's a program that allows people who came to this country as children but currently don't have a permanent immigration status to have protections from deportation, have access to a work permit, and continue contributing to the communities. Many of them, like Stan said, grew up here, went to school, and they're American in every way. We have 550,000 of them nationally. 95,000 of them are here in Texas. They pay over $847 million in local, state, and federal taxes, and they wield the spending power of $3 billion. So these are people that have homes, they've bought cars, they've started their families. And if you were to take away those protections, it'll be devastating for our economy. And God forbid, if the federal government decides to deport everybody, as some political officials are doing, these are Americans that would be removed from our country, and it would be very devastating.
People who came here as children by no choice of their own, who've gone through American public school system, who have grown up here, who are out there, and as Stan was saying, by going through DACA, they registered. So the government knows who they are. And then as a DACA participant, once they register, they have to renew that registration, once a year, every 2 years, to make sure.
Every 2 years, and it's not cheap.
So Juan Carlos, you came over. How old were you when you came over?
I was 3 years old when I came to the country, 3 years of age. I don't even remember Mexico when I came.
Where did you go to college?
I went to college at Yale University. I grew up undocumented.
The Yale University? The Yale? How did you afford
exactly.
How did you afford
the Yale? I mean, I had to work my butt off and do well in school and participate in extracurricular activities and give back to my community. But I'm an example of what immigrants and immigrant residents can do when we have access to an ID and when we're able to continue paying our taxes. So DACA is an ID and tax program that works, and we should try to expand it the way Stan is advocating for.
But you can go to Yale, you can go to Harvard, you can go to Rice and be undocumented. But when you get out, you can't get a job. Luckily, you had DACA. So when you graduated from Yale, you could get a job.
Yeah, thanks to DACA.
Are you a citizen now?
I'm not a citizen.
You will be deported under the new rule.
Most likely, unfortunately.
Your wife's going to be unhappy about that.
Oh yeah, and she's also a DACA recipient, by the way. So we're both in hot water.
JR, what kind of world do we live in? This is worse than the Bracero.
Well, it is, Stan. It is, and Stan, you said something, and I fully understand it. I've employed certain large groups of people in my lifetime, but as an employer, you have a certain obligation. You get that I-9, you check things out. If they have, that's the Social Security and ID may have come from the flea market, but if it looks real and you're in need of workers, you're going to do what you think is best. But at the same time, let's be realistic. There's so many people out there with fake IDs and using false Social Security numbers. But when the U.S. government knows, 375 people are using the same Social Security number, they know it. And let's face it, those folks don't go to H&R Block and ask for a return. So
let me
that money sits there.
You used to get no match letters from Social Security telling you that the names doesn't match, and they quit doing that. And if they get that money and the names don't match, they keep it. Yep. They don't send it back to me or to the men. They keep it. And it's about $8 billion a year right now, or maybe more. They won't tell you how much it is. Yeah. I mean, it's the other thing I want to throw in about if we were to give these people legal status, and you talk to your car dealers, you talk to anybody that sells things on financing, think how many on houses, think how many of those 11 to 20 million people, if they had legal status, could go to a bank and get a loan to buy a car, to buy a house, to buy a refrigerator, to buy Mattress Max furniture. It would create incredible, because right now the cash economy for an undocumented person, they get screwed every time they turn around. And they get robbed picking up, going to the check cashing place and going home because they're scared to go to the police. I mean, it is the stories I've heard are horrific about what happens, and I'm talking to law enforcement. And we just had a little thing called a hurricane here, which is in my 77 years is the worst storm I've ever been in. I've never been so scared in my life. It looked like it was going to blow us all away, and the damage and the desolation. And thank God the winds were only 85 and 90 miles an hour. It didn't take off roofs, so we didn't have that. But the trees and the signs, and who's out there cleaning that stuff up?
Yep.
I saw a 14-year-old kid pick up a damn stump bigger than he was and put it in a car with his dad driving. And they're all over. I mean, they're in trees, they're picking up stuff, they're cleaning out bios, and God, I just hope they get paid. I know during Harvey, these companies would come in, hire all these labor, and then not pay them. They'd leave town, take the money and leave town. And I'm afraid that kind of stuff goes on. But, if we were to have a mass deportation in Texas, and I think it's closer to 2.5 million people, Juan Carlos, or the statistics I've heard, you wouldn't get your yards done. You wouldn't have food service. You wouldn't have janitorial people cleaning buildings. It would shut it down. And if our business leaders can't see that, shame on them. We deserve it, because the business community has got to stand up.
Stan, you don't understand. All these folks that are here undocumented, they're taking jobs from other people.
Who? Tell me who. I can't get anybody to do anything. My kids aren't going to do that.
Who wants to get on a roof in 100-degree temperature?
Who wants to hang
go out there?
Sheetrock? My God.
Who wants to go out there and pick crops? Back-breaking labor. For 8, 9, 10 hours a day or whatever it takes to do that. So that the whole argument, Juan Carlos, I don't know if you have any statistics, but just kind of open question here, guys. Does the argument that undocumented workers are coming in and taking our jobs, with me, that just doesn't hold water. It makes no sense, because a lot of them are doing jobs that nobody else wants. That it's things you said, we don't have the trades in the school anymore. I think we need to put those back in there. At the same time, these kids coming out of school, a lot of them are college bound. Congratulations. I mean, I'm all advocating for a post-secondary education, but the expectations, you're not going to come out of college and get a $80,000 job or get the vice presidency of a corporation. I mean, some of these kids are they don't know what they don't know. And some of the work ethic is not there. But I tell you what, with a lot of these undocumented folks that are here, they're here to work, they're here to contribute, they want to get a lifestyle. And guys, it's not they're coming over to take people's jobs. It's like, what would any American do? What would anybody do if they were in a situation where they were being persecuted, they were being attacked, they were involved with a corrupt government, where something was going on that they could not live in that country safely anymore? Any man, any person would want to get their mom would want to get their family out of there into some place that was safe, so they could at least have some degree of security and safety and feed themselves. I mean, that's basic.
Thank God my grandfather left Czechoslovakia for those reasons and came to the United States, because otherwise I'd still be over there farming or building houses in the Czech Republic. But the other thing is, my friends, and I'm a Republican, I'm a Reagan Republican, but my friends on the left say, well, that's not fair, taking a person and making him a guest worker and not having a path to citizenship. And I checked with my people in the Latino community that work with these people every day, and I said, how important is being a citizen and voting to those people? They said, not at all. They just want
to work,
raise their family, and be left alone. Their kids now, their kids are going to want to vote, but most of their kids are American born.
Well, and Juan Carlos, jump in here anytime you see an opening. Stan and I are going at this a little bit, but I've always advocated for a guest worker program, very similar to what you're talking about. Where is the harm in controlling how many people come in, do background checks on them, make sure they're not, felons or part of some cartel or anything like that, bring them to this country and put them to work, and then let them go back and forth, to their country of origin freely with that documentation. Because a lot of this, what was called chain migration, You get a young man who comes to the country to work. They start making a little bit of money. They're going to miss their children. They're going to miss their wife. They're going to want to be with their family. So what do? They start saving up money, trying to figure it out, and get them here in the U.S. with them. But I tell you what, if they had some sort of guest worker program and they were able to go back and see their family on a regular basis without fear of getting caught by immigration or being deported or incarcerated, that would occur. And I think it would also help build the economy of wherever country they're from. I've seen I've seen firsthand some construction workers from El Salvador that when they would go back and try to visit, uh, or when they went home, they took some blueprints from some of the houses they were building. They took the blueprints and went ahead and they built themselves some little uh, homes and little McMansions out in El Salvador, using the blueprints they had taken over here. They had the skills, they had the blueprints, and they improved their way of life over there for themselves and their entire family. So it's a balance. The U.S. is a land of opportunity, and Stan, to your point, if your grandfathers were immigrants from Czechoslovakia. They came over, and this entire country was built by immigrants. I mean, we wouldn't have had the railroad if it wouldn't have been for the Chinese. I mean, the Italians are very significant, in the Eastern Seaboard. I mean, every immigrant who has come to this country, a lot of them just want a better way of life and to work. And when this country is facing a national work shortage and prices are the way they are right now, it makes no sense to go, let's get a group of people that are demographically younger, that want to work, that are not here to become citizens, that are not here to vote and try to sway our elections. They just want an opportunity to support themselves and their families. It makes no sense to say we are going to sit there and just round up every undocumented worker and kick them out of the country.
Exactly. Look, JR, Texas has over 799,000 open jobs. We have only 80 workers available for every 100 open jobs. We're not producing babies. We're not having bigger U.S. citizen-born families. So you either have to import your talent or grow your talent, and we're not growing our talent. So we have to start with sensible policies that will address this severe crisis. And what the White House just did, what the Biden administration just did, is an example of good policy that will actually solve problems. This policy will allow 111,000 Texans to have access to a work permit. It's going to give the economy $1.5 billion in GDP, and it's going to allow our local, state, and federal governments to get over $527 million in new revenue. This is going to help our schools. It's going to help our roads, our infrastructure. It's the opposite of mass deportations. Mass deportations don't address our economic problems. They don't address the fact that we need talented people to make our country stronger.
Only problem is it's an executive order, and if there is a change in administration, it's dead.
Yep.
That's the only problem. And I don't know how the election's going to be. I mean, for the first time in my life, I don't have a choice. I don't know who I'd vote for.
Well, hell, Stan, I'm about to vote for you if you get on the ballot real quick.
I tell you what, anything would be better than our two choices. But anyway, it's still a little ways to the election. But I've got to get off in about 10 minutes. But I do want to make the point that our greatest asset as a country is our workforce. We have the infrastructure money that we need to build. We've got ports, we've got chemical plants, we've got build houses. We have a tremendous housing shortage. And the one good thing about construction is that you're not going to replace them with a robot. This is to me the golden age of construction if we could fix it. Wages have never been higher. When Bucky's paying $20 an hour and Chick-fil-A is paying 18, we're paying guys 22 just to pick up a hammer. That's $45,000 a year without a high school diploma, with a prison record. As long as you're clean now, we're a second chance employer. And this is the time that we need to make hay as far as building a workforce and taking all the undocumented workers in this country and weeding out the ones that don't need to be here and giving the rest a permit, and then getting them a training, safety, good equipment, and quality improvement, productivity improvements. That's how we build America. And we can do that with a little common sense. I'm really concerned that this has been a political football for a long time. And you got to get it into the realm of what will work best for our country. Common sense. Juan Carlos and I are talking with that new congressman in New York. I can't remember his name.
Tom
Everybody,
Suave.
everybody wants to do something, but it's got to be a bipartisan effort. It just can't be one guy. It can't be one party. I'm hopeful when the election is over that we can say, okay, guys, this is our opportunity. Let's get border security. Let's secure that border. Put more troops down there. Let's clear up the asylum law where it really makes sense. Let's don't just turn people loose. Let's make sure every undocumented person in the country has a tamper-proof ID. If I go to Mexico, I got to have a passport. If I go anywhere, anybody comes in here, nobody wants to have a national ID in the United States. But for our foreign population, they need an ID. And it's as simple as that. But nobody wants to take the time and effort to do it. And we have the technology, retina, fingerprints, all this stuff. But we haven't done it. So I can go on and on, guys. But JR, what I'm seeing is that we, the people, aren't going to get this done unless we have a real upswell. We got to get the damn business community off their butts. The CEOs in that boardroom who build a building with undocumented workers, who have undocumented workers doing the janitorial, who have undocumented workers doing the landscaping, the food, and they are the one in the boardroom that ought to say, we need to fix this immigration system. These people that work on my buildings, they are immigrants, and damn it, they need to be legal and pay taxes. It's a business community, and they won't do it. Maybe they like the cheap labor. I don't know what it is. I'm sick of it. But I tell my Fortune 500 buddies, get off your butt and get involved. And of course, it's political. It's political.
Yeah, it's a shame, and you're absolutely right, Stan. I mean, we need to do something, but I find it kind of interesting. On one end, you have people going, we need to build America. We need to start building stuff. We need to start having factories. We need to start producing things. But with what labor? We already have a labor shortage. I mean, this is a great pipe dream to do that, but if you don't have the labor, it's not going to happen. And then Juan Carlos, you made a comment that I just want to mention, is that, and in my opinion, a lot of it just goes down to basic fear. It's the world is changing. The U.S. is changing. According to the last Census Bureau, non-Hispanic whites, as far as newborns, super decline. I mean, it just dropped like a rock. So the actual non-Hispanic white population is not growing whatsoever. It's in the decline. Where the Hispanic population, average age is 27, 28 years old. They're younger. They're childbearing. They're willing to work. They're out there. And Stan, to your point, they're making sure that you and I are going to have some sort of Social Security to depend on in our later years. But without them, a lot of these systems would already have crumbled. We need that workforce. Nobody's trying to cancel anybody out. Nobody's trying to take over. It's just a matter of common sense. And the thing, Stan, to your point, you're absolutely right. It makes no sense. But right now, if in fact we were to fix it, which is very easy to fix at one level, and then there's a difference between immigration and border security. There's differences. Don't clump them all into one. But at the same time, if we were to solve it, if everybody would come together and bipartisanly and address it, then there'd be no political arguments to fight about. I mean, it's insane. I think that there's some people that purposely want turmoil in this country to be in the situation it is, so they can take advantage of it politically or use it as political fodder. It makes no sense. Our elected officials should do what's best for the country first and foremost, and put the country first and not the party first. That's my opinion. And if I go any further, I'm probably going to get into trouble. So I'll just leave it at that. So Carlos, before we go, you have any closing comments? And thank you so much for setting this up with Stan, Carlos, and being here. And you as a Yale graduate and a dreamer and somebody who's definitely been here and contributed and is doing some wonderful work here in the country and for the community, Carlos, I want to say thank you very much for you being you, for doing it. And my prayers are with you that a couple years from now that you're still here and not working in Mexico someplace selling tomatoes or something.
Stan's right, JR. We need to make these work permit programs permanent. Lawmakers need to do their job and put these executive programs into legislation so that they don't get eliminated if there's a new administration or a new president. Both the work permit programs just announced by the White House, the ability for businesses to sponsor dreamers. Hopefully, I might be able to be sponsored by a business or by an organization. These are policies that work. They're proven to work. They help our economy, and we just need them to be long term.
Thank you. Stan, thank you so much for being with us today. Any closing comments, sir?
No, I think I've laid it all out there, and I pray to God every night that our politicians will do what's right rather than what they need to do to be elected. It breaks my heart. I've been around a long time, and I've seen some great leaders, and we need some right now.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And whether people want to, however you look at it, the change in this country is going to continue. You're looking at the average age of white people, non-Hispanic whites. I mean, they're up there, but in their 40s, 50s. Average age of Hispanic is going to be in the late 20s. Childbearing, there's more and more. And if you're looking at it between the years of 2020 and 2030, there's some estimations that'll show as much as 78% of all employees, 78% of all new people entering the workforce will be of Hispanic origin. So, I mean, it is what it is, guys. And to sit there and try to hang on or do these mass deportations, it makes no sense, because in the long run, the country is going to be hurting. The economy will start to implode on itself. And if you want to see, you talk about inflation now, which deport all the undocumented workers and watch what happens to our economy. It is just going to crumble.
I need to say hasta luego.
All right. With that said, Stan, Juan Carlos, thank you for joining us today. My name is J.R. Gonzalez, your host. You've been listening to the Latino Business Report. Latino Business Report is brought to you by TAMAC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce. You can find more information about us on our website at www.latinobusinessreport.com. And for those of you who like YouTube, you can get an audio version of all of our episodes on YouTube under the same name, Latino Business Report. Folks, hasta next time. Take care and good luck.